Today we will study about organizing function of management. Organizing basically means getting prepared and getting organized or grouping of similar activities. Grouping of to know about the detailed process of organizing. It involves several steps starting with delegation of authority, followed by enumeration of objectives, determination of objectives, then classification of activities, and finally alignment of duties. Organizing is that function of a manager in which he needs to organize and divide the work. The first step is delegation of authority, means deciding which person will be authorized to do what kind of work. Secondly, it is enumeration of objectives. What are the objectives that would be assigned to each individual? Third is determination of objectives, means when and how those objectives would be achieved. Fourth is classification, means dividing the activities, and finally assignment of duties. After understanding the process of organizing, let's understand several important terms relevant to it. First is departmentation. As the name suggests, it is a process of grouping activities into departments, means dividing the activities on the basis of departments. Then there is something known as functional departmentation, which is again very much clear from the name. This means dividing activities into departments on the basis of function. So it is process of grouping activities by functions performed. This is known as functional departmentation. Then there is another type of departmentation which we call product departmentation. In this, the grouping is done on the basis of product line. Then another type is your customer departmentation. In this, the grouping is done on the basis of common customers. Common customers means the similar types of customers are grouped into one department, and then in this way different groups are formed. Then there is another type known as geographic departmentation, in which grouping is done on the basis of territory or the place of availability. Then we have something known as process departmentation. In this, the grouping is done on the basis of product or service flow. Another important form of departmentation is known as matrix departmentation. In this, there is no single pattern that is followed, but a mix of bases is adopted. To get a clearer understanding of this, we can say that different bases are used simultaneously rather than taking only one thing, be it process, consumer or anything, as the basis of departmentation. After this comes the concept of authority and responsibility. Or you can call it authority and power. In this, these two terms might appear similar, but actually they are not. So we will understand the differences between the two on several bases. The very first basis that we are going to take is, one is your nature. In case of authority, there is a formal right attached to it that the person who is having that authority holds. So there is a formal right. And when we talk of power, there is no such formal right, but it is something that is felt from within. Now second basis is the flow, means how power and authority flows. Your authority flows in the downward direction, and when we talk of power, there is no specific flow of direction. Thirdly, it is done on the basis of organizational charts. In case of power, there is a clear cut superior subordinate relationship. While in case of power, these are not shown in charts. This is again a very important basis of difference. Then fourth is levels of management. Higher the level, higher will be authority, and in case of power there is nothing specified. Then next point is position and person. Authority is always given to a position or post. It is never given to a person. It is authority which comes with the position, and the power lies within the person. Means how much he intends and how much he is willing to do. Now, after getting an idea about how we can differentiate between authority and power, let's see what are the major sources through which power can be generated. So, we will quickly understand about several sources of power that prevail within any organization, because we are talking about managerial practices. So, sources of power could be anything, like one is your reward power, means ability to reward others. This is one kind of power. Then is your coercive power, which is based on influences. Then third is legitimate power, then there is something which you call expert power, and lastly referent power. So, these are the different sources through which power can be generated. Similarly, there are sources of authority. So, this can again be one of the basis for differentiation. Basically, there are three sources, and we name them as your formal theory, acceptance theory, and competence theory. So, this is about the different sources of authority. Then we will look at another important aspect of organizing, which is very common these days, and we call it as your line and staff. In this specialized as well as supportive activities, line is your specialized zone, wherein the people who are expert in one particular work, they are engaged in doing that, and this is your support zone, means other things that support the working and functioning of the line people. So you can say in this specialized and support zone activities are attached to the line of command by appointing staff specialists, who are attached to the line authority, So this is the whole concept of line and staff. Further to this, there is something known as delegation, without which no organization can flourish in today's scenario. This term has become quite common in terms of your managerial activities. It basically means devolution of, or you can say dissemination of authority on subordinates to make them perform assigned duties. These help them in efficiently performing the assigned duties. There are three elements of delegation that one should know. So we can write it as delegation elements, which comprises of entrustment of responsibility, then is granting of duties, and third is creation of accountability. These are the three main functions associated with your delegation. After this, another important concept related to organizing function, we call it as decentralization, which is exactly opposite of delegation. Decentralization. Delegation meant division of authority, and in decentralization, whole of the power lies into one unit. So, one person is powerful to whom everybody has to report. This is decentralization, and if that particular person divide his responsibility to others, then this decentralization becomes delegation. So, in this, the decision making, it is opposite of centralization, which was just explained. So, in this, decision making is not confined, decision making is not confined to a few top executives, but runs throughout the organization, but runs throughout the organization. After this, the last concept is of span of management. Span of management. It relates to the number of subordinates. It relates to number of subordinates that the supervisor can manage. This means what is the range of management, or management means the top executives. So, it is the number of subordinates that the management can handle. And lastly, let us see the factors that decide upon the span of management. So, those factors are, one is training, because span of management involves training, which is a very important function. Second is clarity of delegation of authority. If the manager would be clear about how to delegate, then only he will pass on the same to the subordinates. Third is clarity of activities that are to be given to the subordinates. Fourth is rate of change, how the person respond to several changes. And lastly, amount of personal contact needed. So, this is all about organizing.